Welcome to Mrs. Jones's lesson. Today, Mrs. Jones is going to be teaching you about graphing. I hope you find the information in this lesson useful and applicable to your studies.
All right, welcome to class. Today what we're going to talk about is graphing. So at the top of your page, I want you to write the equation y equals mx plus b. Now what we need to realize is that this is an equation that we use to graph a line, and we call that slope-intercept form. And I hope that you guys remember that m stands for slope, which is also how we move. And the b part of this line is what's called our y-intercept, or I also like to think of the b as where we begin. Make sure that you write this down on your notes. Now remember that m is how we move, and we go up and right or down and right to see how steep our line is. And b, which is that last number, is going to be where we begin. And one important thing to remember is that slope is always next to your x. Okay, so let's go ahead and try. Our first equation is y equals 1 over 5x minus 2. So the first thing I want to identify is where we begin. And we begin at -2. Now it's important to remember that even though we read this as -2 is the same as a negative. So I'm going to write where I begin as a point. Make sure that you write this down. And where we begin is at the point 0, -2. So I'm going to go ahead and put that point on my y-axis. And I always begin on my y-axis. So 0, -2. Okay, after I've put my first point on my graph, now I need to look at my slope, which is my number in front of x. And my slope is 1 over 5, and it's a positive slope. So I'm going to go up 1 and to the right 5. So from where I began, which is my blue dot on the graph, I'm going to go up 1 and to the right 5. Up 1, right 5. Now with a line, a line can go in two separate directions. So I also want to get one more point on my graph, and I have space to do that to the left of where I began. So starting again at my blue point, I'm just going to keep my line going with using my pattern of my slope of going up 1, right 5, and I'm going to go down 1 and left 5. And that's going to be my second or my third point. Now, when I connect my point, I want to make sure that I have an arrow on either side so that I'm showing that my line goes infinitely in either directions. Okay, let's go ahead and try number 2. The first thing, again, I want to look for is that last value in that problem, which is my number that is not touching my x. And that's plus 5, which is the same as positive 5. So where I begin, I'm going to write this on the side, is at the point 0, 5. And remember that I always begin on my y-axis. So 0, 5 is right here. After I place that first point, I want to look at my slope. Slope is always going to be your number touching your x. And my slope is positive 4 over 5, so I'm going to go up 4 and to the right 5. Now, you might say, well, there's a problem. And there is. Because if we try to go up 4 and right 5 from where we began, we're going to go off of our graph that we have. And that doesn't mean that there's not a point here. It's just that it's not going to do us much good to graph a point off of our graph because it's just not going to be probably in the right exact spot. So the only time that we ever go left when we're working with slope is if we were to go off our graph when we place that first point from where we began. So the way that I'll fix this is I do the opposite of going up and right. So instead of going up and right, I'm going to go down 4 and left 5. Down 4 and left 5. That's going to be my correct point placement. Okay, so the only time we ever go left for slope is if we go off our graph. We have to do the opposite. Okay, let's go ahead and try number 3. For number 3, we have y equals 2/5 x minus 2. And that minus 2, which is the same as a negative 2, is where we begin. So I'm going to write my beginning point as 0, -2. And I'm going to put my first point on my graph as 0, -2. Once I've established my first point, now I look at my slope to figure out how I move. Now my slope is positive and it's positive 2/5, so I'm going to go up 2 and to the right 5. So go ahead and count that out. Up 2 and to the right 5. And place your point. Now I'm also going to go in my opposite direction so that I have my line continuing in both ways from where I began. So I'll just go down 2 and left 5. Okay, so that's going to be our line. Connect your points as best as possible and draw your arrows, and we're done. All right, we're going to try 2 more examples together on this page to make sure we've got it. So where do you think we begin for number 4? Hopefully you said we'll begin at the value 0, -4. Remember that that minus is the same as a negative. So we begin at 0, -4, and I'm going to put my first point there to start. And remember, we always start on the y-axis. We never start on the x-axis, ever. Okay. Now that we've established that, we want to look at our slope, which is our number in front of x, and look at how that's a -1/5. If our slope is negative, we're going to go down 1 and right 5 to start. So from where I began, I'm going to go down 1 and to the right 5, and that's my first point. And then to continue my line in that same direction, I'm just going to do the opposite so that I can have as many points on my graph as possible. So I would go up 1 and left 5. And that's going to be my line. Draw your arrows at the end. All right, good job. We've got one more on this side, and that is going to be number 5. And for number 5, looking at our b value, we have +1. So where we begin is at 0, 1, and I'm going to put my first point on my graph. Now my slope is positive 2/3, so I shall go up 2 and to the right 3. So up 2, right 3. And I can do that one more time. Go up 2, right 3. Okay. And then I also want to try to put my line and keep it going in the opposite direction from where I began as well. So I'll go down 2, left 3. One more time. Down 2, left 3. And basically, there's no rule about how many points you want to put on your graph. But I always tell my students to put as many as possible because eventually that's going to help you when we learn something new. And it will also help you make the straightest line possible. So nice job with this side. We're going to do one more video to finish up the back. It will go a little bit faster since now you're getting the hang of this. And so go ahead and flip your page to the back, and then you're going to watch the second video so that you feel really confident with this.